Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in fierce opposition to this bill, which is going to adversely affect more than 34 million national public radio listeners through 900 local stations across our entire country. My Republican colleagues have declared an emergency to rush this bill to the floor without any hearings whatsoever to examine the proposal. I think that's a bad way to do business. We have many emergencies to deal with in our country, but attacking and crippling NPR is hardly an emergency. What the bill does, and it does it in a very sneaky backdoor way, what the bill does is it cuts off the use of all federal funding to NPR by preventing any grants to it. It prevents any support to NPR by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and it prevents support to NPR programming from public radio stations across the country. In other words, it cripples it, it hobbles it, which is really what the majority is seeking to do. This proposal is not going to do anything about reducing the deficit. The CBO has weighed in. It doesn't cut any federal spending. In fact, the bill doesn't produce 1 penny in savings. What's very clear is what it does do, and it's really purposeful, and that is to hobble NPR, threatening 9,000 jobs at stations across the country. Why? I think the motivations behind this effort are quite clear. They're rooted in an ideological view about what NPR broadcasts, and it capitalizes on recent headlines involving Ron Schiller and Juan Williams. This attack on NPR strikes at the core of a wide array of NPR programming that Americans enjoy every single day, all week long across the country, from the Diane Rehm show to Morning Edition, and to 2 of my favorites, Car Talk and The World of Opera. I acknowledge that our nation faces threats, but Car Talk is hardly one of them, and neither is Diane Rehm. Silencing what some disagree with, make no mistake about it, is a threat to our democracy. A great democracy does not silence voices. We want many voices to the many. NPR programming reaches more than 900 independently owned and operated stations across the country, from San Francisco's KQED, the most listened to public radio station in the country with more than 740,000 listeners each week, to small rural stations like the chairman of the subcommittee, KCUW, in Pendleton, Oregon. These stations provide an important public service to the local community, and people trust it, and they enjoy it, they want it, they like it. This is national programming with local listenership, and NPR's listenership has increased, unlike other stations, by 72% over the last 10 years. And a recent national survey found, and that's why I think this is an ill-begotten proposal by the majority. You say you listen to the American people. I think you have to take the plugs out of your ears. A recent national survey found that almost 70% of all voters across the entire political spectrum oppose terminating the funding for public broadcasting, including 56% of Republicans in the country. So I think it's time to stand up for NPR. I think that this is a phony emergency measure, and I don't think NPR deserves to be treated this way. I urge my colleagues to vote to preserve really what I think is a national treasure that provides, in very tough times, very clear and important news and information to instruct our country and listeners in local communities around our nation.